Mitchell walked out of the hunter's shack, embarrassed by a large wet spot on the front of his work pants. Hunter Lewis, the owner of Hunter's shack, had shown Mitchell a pornographic video that one of his dancers had made for the club. Although most of it was out of view, what was necessary, he reviewed. Mitchell watched the video with his mouth open in amazement. Hunter's Shack, a gentleman's club that served some of the best pork and brisket barbecue sandwiches in Mindy, Arkansas. Monday through Thursday, Mitchell delivered 60 regular jumbo-size hamburger buns. On Friday, they ordered and received 108 buns. Spanzin's bakery didn't deliver on Saturdays. My God, Mitchell sighed, getting into his Spanzin's bakery truck. He'd love to buy a hunter's license, to come in here after he finished making deliveries for Spanzin's bakery. He would have loved to sit and enjoy a pulled pork sandwich served on a Spanzin's bun, drink a cold Gratchley's beer, and admire the naked flesh on display. But Linda, Mitchell's wife of 9 years, would never let Mitchell waste their money like that. Yeah, but that gym membership. When was the last time your fat ass was at Samantha's? Muttered Mitchell. Mitchell's salary went to the mortgage, car payment, insurance. Linda's salary went to utilities, groceries, other little things and necessities. And it seems, everything Mitchell wanted wasn't necessities. Like a hunter's license, a membership to a gentleman's club. Mitchell and Linda had met at one of Martinez's backyard parties. Martinez Sanchez loved young girls, and his parties usually featured a crowd of schoolgirls frolicking in tight bikinis. So when a very drunk Linda Myers staggered up to 27-year-old Mitchell Schnauter, the first thing Mitchell did was determine that Linda was 18. The second thing he did was wait until she was sober enough to consent. She was sober enough to consent the very next evening. They continued to date, but Linda's father, Carlos Myers, vehemently objected to his 18-year-old daughter running around with a 27-year-old man. Her father's disapproval only spurred Linda to pursue intimacy with Mitchell Schnauter. "I'm knocked up, you goddamn asshole," Linda tearfully declared 2 months after they began dating. 2 weeks after their hasty wedding, Linda tearfully admitted that she had lost the baby. At that moment, Mitchell briefly considered annulling their marriage, but then decided that, pregnant or not, he had promised to love, honor, and cherish Linda Myers. And through tears, Linda had promised that they would have many children. So he stayed. He also supported Linda in her pursuit of an education, especially given the limited opportunities of a high school graduate. At Samuel Connor Community College in Gratchley, Arkansas, students had the opportunity to earn an associate degree in a variety of subjects. The credits earned there were transferable to Mindy University for a bachelor's degree. Linda chose to attend community college and earned an associate degree in accounting. Carlos's attitude toward Mitchell changed somewhat, especially since Mitchell was the one who paid for Linda's college tuition. Clarkston County hired an attractive 20-year-old Linda Schnauter to work in the budget department of county government. The salary was lower than in private practice, but the benefit offerings were substantial. "And I get the weekend off in honor of Martin Luther King's birthday and President's Day and," Linda exclaimed, showing Mitchell the employment packet. "Yeah, and can you use these days to get some rest?" Mitchell joked. "What, the apartment is quite clean," Linda replied. "Linda, I saw a dust bunny chasing a mouse the other day," said Mitchell. "Then you clean it up," Linda objected. "You're the one who comes home at 2 o'clock. "I'm the one who leaves at 4:30, Mitchell replied. "Don't be like you're the only one who works here." But Linda was distressed to learn that she was being dropped from Mitchell's health insurance and would have to get her own. Even Mitchell's explanation that it was because of Affordable Care Act requirements didn't reassure her. To diffuse the tense situation, Francesca Myers, Linda's mother, intervened. Mitchell fell silent when her mother repeated his words. However, through her conversation with her mother, Linda became more aware of the situation. Mitchell said nothing, but it annoyed him that Linda didn't always listen to his logic unless she was influenced by her parents. He shook his head, realizing that in many ways she remained bound by family ties. Marriage was supposed to help break those ties, but apparently that wasn't happening completely. After visiting Hunter's cabin, Mitchell headed to the next delivery point. A customer noticed a dark stain on Mitchell's pants, and he explained that he had spilled coffee on himself. He felt that his flushed cheeks might have given the store manager the wrong idea, but the woman said nothing. Mitchell finished his delivery and returned to Spanzin's bakery. Parking the truck, he walked into the office with the signed invoices. Daniel, Greg Spanzin's son, greeted him cheerfully. Greg Spanzin had hired Mitchell to clean the offices and the bakery itself when he was 17 years old. After his battle with cancer, Greg had relied on Mitchell to run the business. "Don't forget next week for Valentine's Day donuts," Daniel reminded Mitchell as he finished filling out the delivery plan. "I'll pass it along to Lynch and Schiff. Chocolate-covered cherries again?" asked Mitchell. "Yes, with pink frosting," confirmed Daniel. As they approached the house, Mitchell noticed Dolores Reardon, their tenant, carrying a bag of laundry up the metal stairs next to the garage. Her waist-length brown hair and plump lips made her look particularly cute. The pregnancy was making itself noticeable. Her belly already stood out considerably. "Hi, Dolores. How are you?" greeted Mitchell to her. The girl replied in her characteristic breathy voice. She complained about the laundromat 5 blocks away, and Mitchell silently scolded Linda for not letting Dolores use their washer and dryer. "Look, Valentine's Day is this Sunday. Ms. Linda and I are going to celebrate it on Saturday. Can you imagine how many places are out of business on Sundays?" said Mitchell. "Mr. Mitchell, it's cold in here, and I don't want to pee my pants," Dolores intervened. "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll take care of my business when I leave," replied Mitchell. "Can I hide my things at your apartment?" "Sure," Dolores agreed and left for her apartment. "Damn, I wish I could just relax," muttered Mitchell as he walked down the stairs. Dolores worked at one of the Burns & Burns grocery stores that was on Mitchell's route. Andy Lynch, the general manager, approached Mitchell regarding the garage apartment. After looking at the cute 18-year-old girl, Mitchell agreed to give her an apartment with no deposit after listening to her story. According to Andy, Dolores grew up in various foster homes and lived in different places, including trailers where her methamphetamine-addicted mother lived. Mindy University offered Dolores a scholarship, and she moved from DeHardy, Louisiana, to Mindy, Arkansas. Isolated and depressed, Dolores sought to overcome years of failure, but without success. These life circumstances, along with her upbringing, made her vulnerable to the false promises of James Ulebright. She agreed to an intimate relationship with him, to which he replied, "Thanks, stupid. See you later." After her disappointment, Dolores dropped out of college. A kind pastor provided her with a hot shower, food, and a place to sleep. One of Reverend Dimble's volunteers introduced Dolores to Andy Lynch and helped get her a job at the store. Subsequently, Reverend Dimble quietly suggested that Dolores find another place to stay because he needed a place for another person in need. On Friday, February 12th, Dolores smiled as she opened the door for Mitchell Schnauter. Her small belly was visible under her t-shirt. "When do you work tomorrow?" asked Mitchell, placing a heavy lead crystal vase of roses on the table. "Saturday? I get off at 6:30 and finish at 3:30, same as today," Dolores replied. "Your hair looks great," Mitchell said, pointing to her braid. "Thanks, they need washing," Dolores admitted. "I'll probably do it tomorrow night." "Well, how nice," Mitchell said, placing a large box of chocolates and a card on the table along with the flowers. "Why do you have 9 red roses and 1 white rose?" asked Dolores. "It's a symbol of the 9 years of our marriage," Mitchell explained, "and the white rose represents the following years." "How I wish," began Dolores, but fell silent. Mitchell put the box on top of the candy, looking at the pretty girl. He noticed that there were tears glistening in the corners of her big brown eyes. Before he could ask the reason for her sadness, she turned abruptly and left for the bathroom. The door slammed shut, and Mitchell left the apartment with a heavy sigh. The next morning, Linda woke Mitchell with kisses. The next thing he knew, he could smell bacon frying on the stove. Linda was preparing her traditional breakfast dish, French toast sandwiches. Mitchell brought home bread from Spanzin's bakery original recipe. It was sliced thick, just like the original loaves. Greg Spanzin set the slicer to thicker so people would eat their bread faster and buy more. This clever move worked brilliantly. Many customers preferred the thicker slices over the other varieties on store shelves. Linda used 3 eggs, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a large spoonful of brown sugar, and a 1/4 cup of half-and-half sugar. 4 slices of bread were dipped in the egg mixture and fried on both sides until golden crust. Maple syrup was then spread on 1 slice of bread, topped with 4 slices of bacon, a fried egg, and topped the sandwich with a second piece of French toast. Smelling the faint odor of Linda's coffee, Mitchell pulled on his boxer shorts and robe. A minute later, Linda shouted up the stairs, telling him breakfast was ready. After eating a not too healthy but hearty meal full of cholesterol and sugar, Mitchell cleaned up the kitchen. Linda wasn't particularly clean, and Mitchell didn't want cockroaches infiltrating his mother's house. Finished cleaning, Mitchell turned and saw Linda waiting anxiously for Valentine's Day gifts. Smiling, he told her he'd be right back and hurried up the stairs to their bedroom. Mitchell put on sweatpants and a sweatshirt and reached for his keys. The keys weren't in the small ceramic dish where he usually kept them. He'd made that dish for his mother at summer camp when he was 8 years old. Entering the bathroom, Mitchell opened the laundry basket and hissed irritably. On top of their clothes lay a wet towel. Linda knew full well that he didn't tolerate wet towels being put in the hamper with his clothes. It wouldn't be so bad if she at least washed their clothes regularly, but she didn't do that. She usually waited for the laundry to build up before washing it. Sliding aside the skirt Linda wore to work on Friday, Mitchell found his work khakis. Pulling his pants out of the hamper, bright red briefs fell to the floor. "So?" asked Linda, smiling as Mitchell walked into the kitchen. Mitchell laid the briefs out on the table in front of her. Linda looked at them and turned away in disgust. "I'm not going to wear," started Linda. "I found them in the laundry basket," Mitchell interrupted her. "It sounds like yes, you are going to wear them, but not for me." "I want a divorce," Linda declared. "You got it," Mitchell said. "Start packing. You're not spending another minute in this house." Mitchell noticed that Linda hadn't expected this reaction. Her eyes expressed shock. She apparently expected him to beg, to apologize. "Come on, Linda, let's get it together," Mitchell insisted and left for his office. I'm this..." Stammering, Linda began. "Oh, and give this back here, it's proof of adultery," said Mitchell, returning and picking up the panties from the desk. "Those are mine. Give them back here," shouted Linda, snatching the panties out of his hands. "I wonder whose credit card paid for them?" asked Mitchell rhetorically, closing the office door behind him. "Come on, Linda, you don't have time to think." Mitchell sat down at his desk and turned on his computer. He ran his hand over the smooth, polished surface. This desk, bought by his mother at a garage sale, had originally been covered with layers of paint that had been removed to expose the beautiful oak wood. It was then given a thick coat of varnish and hand-polished to a high gloss. "So there," smiled Mitchell, remembering his mother setting up this desk in the living room. "A big desk for my big schoolboy." 30 years later, Mitchell ran his hand over the smooth surface of the desk again. Then he opened the internet and checked his credit account. Their joint credit card showed charges at the Home Comfort Inn. There were also charges from Vokeen's store, and he assumed the satin panties and matching bra had been purchased there. Damn it, $64, and missing another $64.73, muttered Mitchell, examining the statements. Looking through the other joint credit cards, Mitchell noticed a few more transactions that he knew he hadn't made himself. He quickly printed out the statements for the past 3 months without going into detail. Mitchell didn't hear the noise from upstairs. Opening the door, he saw Linda sitting at the kitchen table. "Linda, I'm serious. You can't stay here," Mitchell said. "You've got an hour. Don't forget to pick up all your work clothes. What else? Come on, let the lawyers handle it." "I'm not going anywhere. It's my house as much as yours," Linda grinned. No. Wrong. It's not your house. It's not even my house. It's my mother's house. And I'm sure she wouldn't want a lying, cheating cunt living here, replied Mitchell. 1 hour, Linda. Time is running out. But where am I to go? Cried Linda. Call your friend. Maybe he'll take you, grinned Mitchell, unfunny. A fat one? You're talking about fat? Have you seen your ass lately? Shouted Linda. Tick-tock, 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 time is ticking, Linda, Mitchell reminded her, and closed the office door. Linda hurried upstairs and began to stomp restlessly. Mitchell turned back to the bank account and pressed his lips together. There wasn't much money left and not enough to pay off all the credit cards. He canceled 3 of the 5 cards, paid off their debts, and requested new cards for the other 2, declaring them lost or stolen. Mitchell didn't know if Linda had any other credit cards, but assumed he would find out when paying the bills. An hour and 20 minutes after Mitchell discovered evidence of his wife's infidelity, he found himself alone in his home. Gathering his courage, Mitchell decided to call Linda's father. Although the years had softened his dislike and distrust of Mitchell, Carlos never fully understood his son-in-law. Hi, Carlos, Mitchell said with ease. Just wanted to let you know that I just banished your daughter from the house. Found out she'd been cheating on me. Well, there you go. Have a good day. Mitchell turned off the phone and let the tears finally escape. He was trying. He had truly tried to be a good and caring husband to this immature, selfish woman. He stayed with her, supported her when she lost her baby, and supported her in school. Why did she act this way? Why had she cheated on him? It was getting dark outside when Mitchell finally sighed and turned on his cell phone again. He saw 5 messages. The first of them was from his wife. Gathering his courage, Mitchell listened to the message. You bastard! Is this true? Did you just call my dad? Shouted Linda into the voicemail. Smiling, Mitchell decided to make that phrase his new ringtone for Linda. Now whenever she called him, he could hear her indignant voice yelling, You bastard! Is this for real? Did you just call my dad? My computer? I don't care about your computer. Your card wasn't stolen. It's my card, Mitchell. My credit cards don't work. Linda continued in her next message. Hotel? What, your boyfriend doesn't want you? Asked Mitchell to himself. On Sunday, Mitchell called Dolores back and left a message letting her leave flowers and chocolates. He knew Grossman's jewelry store would not refund the money for the diamond and ruby bracelet, so he told Dolores she could keep the bracelet. Seeing another message from Linda's cell phone, Mitchell reminded himself to turn off her cellular service. Hey, Danielle, do you know a good lawyer? Mitchell asked Daniel Spanzin as he delivered Monday's orders to his truck, Spanzin's Bakery. Daniel mouthed, Tevis Turner. Mitchell replied with a heavy nod. Yes, I'm afraid so. I'm sorry, Danielle said, placing an understanding hand on Mitchell's shoulder. Divorce, no matter the reason, is always a hard blow. Thanks, nodded Mitchell in response. I'll find his number and send it to you, Danielle offered. As Mitchell was finishing up the delivery, he received a text from Daniel. Mitchell admitted to himself that Daniel was a good boss. The message included a phone number and an invitation to meet at Tevis Turner's office at 4:30 on Tuesday. Mitchell dialed Tevis Turner's office, and Angela Garcia, a paralegal, offered to send him a list of documents Mr. Turner wanted him to bring to the meeting. Mitchell thanked her and could barely hold back tears. Oh, grow up, came Linda's voice through the last voicemail message. Oh my God, just because your little ego felt hurt. Oh well, did you really disconnect my phone? Oh, thank you, Linda, whispered Mitchell, realizing she'd just admitted to cheating. The Norton, Turner, Bloomberg, and Waitley office was located in a modern glass and black steel building on Highland Avenue. Entering the bright white and chrome reception area, Mitchell noticed a seductive blonde who made him forget Linda's name, his own name, and the reason for his visit to the law firm. She greeted him with a smile and offered, "Turn Tevis Turner, please," she commented, looking at her computer monitor. "Yes, sir. I'll let Angelica know you're here." Would you like some coffee or water? No, thank you, swallowed Mitchell, assessing her large green eyes, firm lips, and attractive exterior. Hi, Angelica. This is Renee. Mr. Schnauder is here to see Mr. Turner, Renee announced into her earpiece. A moment later, a charming Latina woman approached them, her golden brown legs looking stunning in her short skirt. She stopped for a moment, put an affectionate hand on Renee's shoulder, and both smiled at each other. Mr. Schnauder? I'm Angelica Garcia, Mr. Turner's assistant, she greeted warmly, extending her hand. Will you follow me, please? Mitchell pondered. With an ass like that? I'll follow you anywhere, as the woman led him down the long hallway. Mr. Turner is in a meeting right now. I emailed you the list yesterday, Angela announced as she escorted Mitchell into the luxurious office. Here's what I have, Mitchell said, shifting the folder into his lap. As Angela leaned forward to peek at his papers, Mitchell felt the front of her blouse. Her swarthy breasts, sagging a few inches from his face, were the focus of his attention. He caught the light scent of Angela's sweat and her floral shampoo, noticed the lace of her snow-white bra, and felt a few strands of her dark brown hair touch his hand. Good. That always makes our job easier. Angela smiled approvingly. No, Jessie, Ms. Durst. As you can see, I have a client here, came a voice from behind. Angela straightened up, a look of disapproval on her face. Mitchell looked over his shoulder and saw a man about his age, dressed in an expensive charcoal gray suit. Standing next to him was a young and very attractive blonde woman, wearing a cream blouse and a dark blue knee-length skirt. Mitchell, who had observed Linda's business style for years, was ready to argue that this woman should have a stylish jacket to throw over the back of her desk chair. Her long, white blonde hair framed an oval face with light makeup, big blue eyes, and pouty lips. Her breasts drew the eye, skimming the material of her blouse and going down to her small waist. After an inaudible reply to Tevis Turner, she turned and Mitchell couldn't take his eyes off her tight skirt, highlighting her plump ass. Tevis Turner, Tevis introduced himself, extending his hand. Daniel and I, we go way back. Did he ever tell you that I play better golf than him? No. He mentioned that he lets you win so you don't get frustrated, Mitchell replied, and Tevis laughed. Looks like him, that lying son of a bitch, Tevis said, shaking Mitchell's hand. Thank you, Angela. Yes, sir, Mr. Turner, Angela muttered, big dark eyes looking at Tevis as he sat down at his desk. All these gorgeous women. How the hell do you have time to work? Wondered Mitchell as Angela strode to the office door. Now let's talk, Tevis said as Angela quietly closed the office door. On Friday, Linda left another stormy tirade in a voicemail message to Mitchell. Are you seriously? You seriously think? A final message from Christina Child notified Mitchell that she, Tevis's server, had found Linda Schnauder. Mitchell had seen many stunningly beautiful women in the Norton, Turner, Bloomberg, and Waitley office, but the appearance of Christina Child was a surprise to him. She was also very beautiful, wearing an elegant outfit that perfectly accentuated her shoulder-length red hair. But there was something boyish about her appearance, very slender. Probably not exactly what you'd expect to see in front of a law firm server, right? Joked Tevis. But let me tell you, Ms. Child, she can find anyone, anywhere, especially if that person doesn't want to be found. She's great on the computer. Christina, how many words per minute can you type? 105 words, Christina replied, then laughed. Sounds like a machine gun when she types, praised Tevis. Listening to Linda's sharp words on the voicemail message convinced Mitchell that she would like to have a machine gun. It also got him thinking about their marriage. From the beginning, Linda had always gotten her way, and Mitchell had always yielded to her. Interesting. I guess Linda was never pregnant, Mitchell reflected. I'm taking this house, you hear me? You can say it's your mom's house, but I'm taking it, Linda shouted in her last message. Good luck, muttered Mitchell. Maisie Schnauder was a 44-year-old librarian when she went to a writer's retreat in Little Rock, Arkansas. There she met 22-year-old aspiring poet David G. McNaughton. Over 3 days they enjoyed Maisie's hotel room. David shared a room with 2 other poets. 9 months later, the unmarried Maisie gave birth to her only child. 33 years later, the daily dose of gin and tonic finally caught up with Maisie. Mitchell agreed to refinance his mother's house and take on the exorbitant monthly payments to help pay for Maisie's stay in a nursing home. Linda was happy to move from a small apartment to a spacious, well-maintained home. Now she was threatening to take the house away from Mitchell. The first meeting took place almost a month later. Mitchell and Tevis agreed to meet with Linda and her attorney, Jamie Tisman, at the offices of Werner, Franklin & Associates. "It's fine. Let them pay the utilities," Tevis decided. Jamie Tisman could never have gotten a job in the Norton, Turner, Bloomberg, and Waitley office if she didn't look like someone who tried her best to be as unattractive as possible. Mitchell had no training in psychology, but it seemed to him that the 40-year-old woman deliberately maintained her stern appearance so that those around her would consider her a serious lawyer. In reality, she gave Mitchell the impression of more of a clowness. "We're here to," Jamie began, his voice sounding like a growl. "In my office?" Angela would have asked if anyone wanted coffee. Or water. Tevis negligently interrupted Jamie's monologue. "Would you like coffee?" snorted Jamie. "Sure, I'd love a cup. Black, please." "Mitchell?" replied Tevis easily. "Coffee? You know what? Yeah, I'd love one. 2 creams, 1 sugar." "Linda, coffee?" said Mitchell. "Mr. Schnoder, I told you that addresses to Linda Schnoder should be addressed to either me or her lawyer," said Tevis, smiling at Jamie's flushed face. "Oh, of course. My mistake," Mitchell said. "Ms. Tisman, does your client want coffee?" "Oh, ha 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 ha," Linda shrieked shrilly. "You're just having fun with this, aren't you?" "Should I refer to you or your lawyer?" asked Mitchell to Tevis. "I think to a lawyer," shrugged Tevis. "I can't tell if you think it's fun or not." "And thank you so much for that kind of service at work," snapped Linda toward Mitchell. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Tell Ms. Tisman to let her client know that I don't know where else to serve her. I don't know if she lives with someone or where she lives," Tevis said. "My client," began Tevis, turning to Ms. Tisman. "We heard. This meeting is over," Jamie interrupted, standing up. "Reschedule your meeting with Kelly for another time when you're both ready to be serious." "I'd like to point out that you're the one asking to end this meeting," Tevis demanded, his tone becoming more serious. "I am," Jamie muttered, walking out of the conference room. "You look stupid with that mustache," Linda hissed at Mitchell. When they first met, Mitchell had a thick mustache. Just like the hair on his head, the mustache was blonde with streaks of brown and red. Linda joked that the mustache itched when they kissed, and finally, after some thought, Mitchell decided to shave it off. Now that Linda was out of the house and no longer dictating to him what to do, Mitchell started growing his mustache again. He also purchased a clipper and changed his hairstyle to a bob. Several women and one man with feminine features, upon meeting Mitchell, remarked on his new look. "Oh, you're showing off those beautiful brown eyes," muttered one of them from the Pack and Go store. Now, in the conference room, Mitchell was smiling at his wife. He turned and looked at Tevis. Tevis shrugged, and Mitchell looked at an indignant Linda. "Thanks, you look good too," Mitchell smiled, looking at Linda. "I'm almost not going to bill you for that," laughed Tevis as they got up to leave the conference room. "One question, is Ms. Tisman good?" asked Mitchell as they stepped out into the cool afternoon sun. "Will my wife ever decide to leave me? I'd recommend Jamie to her. And me? I'd ask Sam Bloomberg to represent me," Tevis said. "Does that answer your question?" "Okay, Linda's not stupid," Mitchell pondered. "I wonder why she went with Jamie Tisman." "Jamie makes half as much as me or Sam," Tevis reported, and closed the door of his sedan. "You son of a bitch." Mitchell heard Linda's shrill scream as he closed his car door. He almost ran over her as she walked purposefully toward his car. Seeing her reaction, he couldn't contain his smile as she bounced unhappily away from his car. Mitchell and Linda's second meeting with their attorneys took place in the conference room of Norton, Turner, Bloomberg, and Waitley. Once again, Mitchell thought Jamie Tisman looked comical in his strict pantsuit. Linda had obviously decided to show Mitchell what he was missing. Her breasts came dangerously close to falling out of her top, and her legs were on display in a short skirt. Her makeup and hair were flawless. Confirming his thoughts, Mitchell agreed that his wife looked very attractive. "Ms. Schnauder, Ms. Tisman, coffee, water? We also have decaf green tea," Angela Garcia politely offered as Jamie and Linda made themselves comfortable. Tevis waited patiently while Angela brought the drinks. The silence lingered as she quietly closed the conference room door. "Well, if we're done," Tevis finally said, when Jamie didn't respond. 40 minutes passed with neither side agreeing to concede. Linda insisted on a 70-30 split in her favor, including the house in the list of assets. Tevis and Mitchell demanded an equal 50-50 split, excluding the house from the estate. A third meeting at the law office of Werner, Franklin and Associates ended with the same result. Neither Linda nor Jamie was going to budge on their demands. Tevis and Mitchell were also committed to an undivided division. Linda showed up to the meeting in a very provocative outfit. Mitchell smiled as he realized that time had changed Linda. She was no longer the big-breasted, blonde teenage woman who had seduced him. He felt a little unfair. Linda couldn't compete with the young, attractive women who danced at the hunter's shack, and he wondered how he compared to Lindine's lover or lovers. "You know, coffee in your office? It's great," Mitchell remarked to Tevis during a pause in his dialogue with Jamie. "I agree, but don't forget we spent a lot of money on a Keurig coffee machine and name-brand capsules," Tevis replied. "Angela, my paralegal, she takes care of all our needs in the office." "Stick with her," advised Mitchell. "No kidding," agreed Tevis. "If you're done," snapped Jamie. "I'm done. Are you done?" asked Tevis to Mitchell. "Well, since I'm paying you by the hour, 1 hour minimum, then yes, I'm done," agreed Mitchell. "Jamie, Ms. Tisman, it looks like we can't come to an agreement again," turned Tevis to Jamie. "I suggest we meet with the judge and let him settle this matter." "We're trying to resolve this dispute so the judge can approve our agreement," Jamie barked. "No, you're really not seeking to resolve this dispute," sighed Tevis. "You're just hoping we'll get tired of this endless fumbling and agree to your unreasonable demands." Depending on the nature of your case, your client's relationship with Judge Seth Grossman could be either favorable or strained and despised. He was not the kind of judge who confirmed everything indiscriminately, but asked important questions of every attorney who stood before him. "Divide 70 by 30, and that's all she's offering?" asked Judge Grossman of Jamie Tisman. "Alleged adultery is just Mr. Schnauder's fantasy," Jamie replied, arguing that Mitchell had no real evidence of an extramarital relationship. "The dwelling is not registered in Mr. Schnauder's name. It's rented from Maisie Schnauder," Judge Grossman continued, examining the documents. "And yet your client is demanding 50% of the appraised value of the house, even though the house is not his property?" "Yes, Your Honor," Jamie replied. "The house and the adjoining apartment belong to Mitchell Schnauder's mother. My client believes that Mrs. Schnauder is claiming this property to deprive him of a legal settlement." When Tevis presented the relevant documents, Judge Grossman confirmed that the property did indeed belong to Maisie Schnauder and would not be included in the division of the estate. Linda Schnauder was not entitled to any part of that property. "Ms. Tisman, your client continues to work, does she not?" asked Judge Grossman after reviewing the documents provided. "Yes, she is working, but because of COVID, she has been transferred part-time to the Clarkston County Budgeting Department," explained Jamie Tisman. "And she's been working for Clarkston County for a long time, 7 years and 8 months, Judge Grossman added thoughtfully. Seth Grossman ordered one of the 3 bailiffs in the courtroom to come to the defendant's table. He quickly wrote something in a notebook and tore out a sheet. The bailiff took the sheet and left the courtroom. "How long has your client been working part-time?" continued Judge Grossman's questioning, looking intently at Ms. Tisman. Since the last pay period, Jamie replied. Convenient, Judge Grossman grumbled. And I'll bet, within 60 days of my decision, Mrs. Schnauder will be promoted back to full-time. Counselor, I'm so sure of it that I'm willing to put your disenfranchisement on the line. Would you care to take that bet? Mr. Turner, wipe the smile off your face. The bailiff returned and laid a sheet of paper before Judge Grossman. The man read it and smiled evilly. Miss Tisman, would you care to accept my wager? Asked Judge Grossman again. No, Your Honor, Ms. Tisman muttered. Because according to Miss Jackson, Mrs. Schnauder's supervisor, Mrs. Schnauder approached her and asked her to reduce her hours, Judge Grossman stated. And according to Ms. Jackson, no employee in her department has ever had their hours reduced, whether COVID or not. So, nice try, Mrs. Schnauder. Judge Grossman continued to look through the papers. Frowning, he flipped back a few pages and then continued to scrutinize the papers. Starting salary is $37,800 a year, even with the maximum allowable deductions. Judge Grossman said and tapped his calculator. Somewhere between 23 and 27. Ms. Tisman, where are your client's financial records? They're right in front of you, Your Honor, Jamie said. No, they're not. I have the bank records here for the Schnauders' joint account. According to payroll records from Mr. Schnauder's place of employment, his entire salary was deposited into their joint direct deposit account every 1st and 15th of the month. Mrs. Schnauder remitted $550 each month. Again, divided by 12, minus that 50, Mrs. Schnauder. Where does $1,400 to $1,700 go each month? Jamie and Linda exchanged glances. Seth Grossman looked at both women without blinking. Mrs. Schnauder, the court awaits your answer, Judge Grossman snapped. Mrs. Schnauder's financial records are irrelevant to this proceeding, Jamie offered. In my courtroom, Ms. Tisman. In my courtroom, I decide what's relevant and what's not. Not you or your client, Mr. Turner, I warn you. Get that smile off your face, Judge Grossman snapped back. Now you have 1 hour, Mrs. Schnauder. We will recess for lunch and reconvene at 1 o'clock. At 1 p.m. I will have on my desk Mrs. Schnauder's bank statements and her tax returns for the 3 previous years. 1 o'clock, Mrs. Schnauder. Is that clear? Linda nearly fainted when Mitchell was awarded 50% of her savings. She roared with rage when Mitchell was awarded 50% of her cash fund and reimbursement for all Home Comfort Inn credit card charges for the past 3.5 years, when she'd been having an affair with a married coworker. What do you say to half of what he's paying that pregnant girl? Insisted Linda. Ah? How come I don't get anything out of it? He moved out last month, Mitchell told Tevis. James Albright strongly denied that he had a child with Dolores. James's parents backed him up, threatening Dolores with legal action if she didn't stop her demands. On Valentine's Day, the Sigma Phi Gamma fraternity threw a party called Red Hearts. James drank many shots of Everclear Fireball and passed out. In the morning, his fraternity friends discovered that he had choked on his own vomit. A few months after their only son's funeral, Charles and Natalie Albright remembered a short, chubby girl who claimed to be pregnant with their son. An intrauterine DNA test confirmed that the girl in Dolores's belly was indeed James Albright's daughter, and Charles and Natalie moved Dolores into their home. At this time, Your Honor, no tenant is there, Tevis informed Judge Grossman. You lying bastard, Linda hissed at Mitchell with hatred. Mrs. Schnauder, unless you have proof that Mr. Schnauder is lying, you will have to pay $500, Judge Grossman said. Do you have proof? How does he get around it? Linda snorted. She was very nice, Mitchell replied to Tevis. Honestly, the guy just didn't want to leave. You little bastard, snapped Linda at Mitchell as the hammer fell. You'd better think about it, shrugged Mitchell. Hi, Melvin, by the way. Linda's eyes went wide at the mention of Melvin's name. She hadn't realized Mitchell knew his name. She turned and ran out of the courtroom. What are your plans? Asked Tevis as they stepped out into the late afternoon sun. Dinner soon, thought Mitchell, looking at his watch. I think I'll have a half-pound hamburger at Hunter's Shack, maybe a couple of Gratchleys. How about you? It was just a normal day in the neighborhood for me, shrugged Tevis. I'll go back to the office and make sure you get my bill in on time. Is it really that important? Said Mitchell, smiling hard. I put 2 kids through college. Tevis smiled, getting into the car. No, I'm the one who put 2 of your kids through college, Mitchell said, as Tevis prepared to close the door. Hey, just one question, Tevis said, pausing. Yeah? Asked Mitchell. You let Linda get away with a lot, said Tevis, frowning his eyebrows. Why? I mean, you did most of the housework, the yard work, paid most of the bills. Why? She wasn't so great in bed, was she? Yeah. No, she wasn't, Mitchell answered slowly, looking up at the roof of Tevis's car. Mitchell sighed, shrugged, and stared at the ground. He shook his head slowly. Just wondering, Tevis said. I guess it's just been me and my mom all my life, Mitchell said. And my mom used to tell me that a man's supposed to take care of a woman. He's supposed to take care of a woman. After a long silence, Tevis closed the door. Mitchell stood for several long moments after Tevis's car rolled out of the parking lot. 3 months later, Mitchell reread with a sigh the thick stack of papers that ended his marriage to Linda Myers. He was glad he'd paid for his hunting license a year in advance. But with his only income, he couldn't afford to dine at the hunter's cabin more than once a week. And he certainly couldn't afford to ask any of the young, beautiful dancers at one of the deer clubs for a private dance. Sighing once more, Mitchell stripped off his work khakis and uniform shirt. In jean shorts and a muddy t-shirt, he stepped outside, feeling the oppressive heat of the late spring day. Maybe I really have been such a bad husband, asked Mitchell to himself, starting the old lawnmower. He had wanted to ask Linda that question the last time they had seen each other in the courtroom in front of Judge Grossman. But he knew that Linda, no matter how bitter she was, wouldn't give him an honest answer. And after the judge's ruling, even less so. He was curious about Linda's situation. Rumor had it that she had temporarily returned home to Carlos and Francesca Myers. Soon after the court hearing, Linda and Melvin Williams moved into the same apartment. Mitchell hoped that Melvin would use Jamie Tisman's services in his divorce from Mrs. Williams. Was I really that bad? Asked Mitchell to himself as he rolled the lawnmower through the gate in the front yard. When Mitchell finally cleared the driveway and sidewalk with the blower, he still hadn't found the answer to his question. But he nodded his head in satisfaction. The yard looked good. Even the flowers in the wooden box along the walkway looked great. Mitchell looked up and down the street. Most of his neighbors took care of their houses. John Barragona's house had recently been painted by Pearl painters, and the light blue color gave it a special liveliness. You shouldn't judge a book by its cover, Maisie told Mitchell. Just because a person looks good on the outside doesn't mean all is well on the inside. Right, Mitchell agreed, glancing again at the gold standard real estate for sale sign in front of John Barragona's house. He didn't know what was going on behind those simple white curtains. Mitchell didn't know what prompted Sarah, John's wife, to leave with their 3 daughters. Nor did he know where they had gone. He was sure, however, that Sandy, John's oldest daughter, who often went out in bikinis and jean shorts, would be missed. Wouldn't be surprised if Sandy turns out to be pregnant, Mitchell thought, as he tore his gaze away from the for sale sign. Mitchell looked again at his house, which was his mother's house. The yard looked well maintained, the flowers in the boxes and last year's paint still in good condition. But inside it was dark, lonely, and lifeless. Come on, a nice hot shower and then we'll go to Hunter's for a juicy burger. How about that? Mitchell tried to calm himself down. On Valentine's Day morning, Mitchell wondered how the new guy was managing to keep up with his old commitments. He quietly climbed out of bed and silently made his way down the stairs. Recently, Mitchell had seen Melvin Williams at Romeo's florist store. Mitchell smiled and asked Melvin how Linda was doing. Yeah, aren't together anymore, Melvin stammered, trying to remember how he might know Mitchell. Mitchell Schnauder, Linda's ex-husband, Mitchell explained, holding out his credit card to the young, pretty, and busy cashier. Yeah, oops, sighed Melvin, backing away from Mitchell. So it's true that sleeping with her and living with her are two different things, right? Mitchell smiled and signed the check. If that's the case, Melvin agreed, but continued to look at Mitchell warily. Mitchell didn't ask about Linda again. He had no interest in Linda's whereabouts and had no intention of doing so. If he was really curious, he could call Carlos Myers. But walking out of the flower store with a heavy vase in his hands, Mitchell didn't care at all. Now, as the sun was just beginning to break the gray dawn through the kitchen window, Mitchell began cooking 4 strips of bacon in a cast-iron skillet. While the bacon was frying, he cracked 3 eggs into a bowl, added half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, a tablespoon of brown sugar, and a 1/4 cup of half and half. In another skillet, he melted a couple tablespoons of real butter and quickly beat the egg cream in a bowl. Then he dipped 4 slices of bread from Spanzin's bakery original recipe into the egg cream. As he was laying the sunny-side-up egg slices on the bacon, Dolores Schnauder walked into the kitchen. She smiled when she saw her plate on the table. "Good morning, little one," she said. "Happy Valentine's Day, dear," Mitchell replied, picking up his sandwich. "Oh, flowers, are those for me?" asked Dolores, pointing to a large bouquet of red roses on the kitchen table. "Yes, this is our first Valentine's Day together," smiled Mitchell. Mitchell worked with Donovan Hurd, showing the young man the route and introducing him to customers. Daniel Spanzin decided to sell the bakery, and T. Thompson Holdings promoted Mitchell Schnauder, the oldest employee, to president and chief operating officer of Spanzin's bakery. Mitchell didn't know who hired Donovan Hurd, Danielle, or B. Thompson, but was confident he would soon replace him. At Burns & Burns Grocer's grocery store, Mitchell, pushing his cart away from the aisle, saw a familiar face at the 3rd checkout counter. He smiled broadly and greeted the short, still somewhat plump young woman. "Mr. Mitchell, do you still have this apartment?" asked Dolores, hugging Mitchell Schnauder tightly. Charles and Natalie were the kind and caring parents that Dolores had always dreamed of having. However, when Dolores gave birth to Simone Albright, her grandparents tried to gain full custody of their granddaughter through the courts. They argued that Dolores was incapable of being a good mother. Fortunately for Dolores, Reverend Dimble was a close friend of Tevis Turner. But unfortunately for Charles and Natalie, Natalie was a good acquaintance of Jamie Tisman, and they decided to use his services in a lawsuit against Dolores. Apple from the apple, as they say. Mitchell sympathized as he helped Dolores set up the crib in the living dining room apartment. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm making sausage and linguine. Honeybee? That's one of her recipes. Will you stay for dinner?" begged Dolores. "Honeybee? Who's that?" marveled Mitchell. "How? Are you kidding? It's Honeybee, the cook from 92 and 9. The kitten who growls?" Dolores asked in surprise. "No," Mitchell smiled. "I'm more into country and western. I think 92 and 9 plays nothing but noise." While Dolores prepared dinner, Mitchell rocked and cared for baby Simone, holding her in his arms. After dinner, looking at the sleeping baby, Mitchell gently ran his hand over her back. He thanked Dolores and hugged her as he stood in the doorway. "You love hair like that," Mitchell said playfully, pulling Dolores's ponytail. Their first kiss was passionate. The second was in Dolores's bedroom when Mitchell helped her remove her panties. The third was before Mitchell left for work. They continued kissing as Reverend Dimble crowned them at the wedding. "You know, this isn't really our first Valentine's Day," Dolores said, showing the diamond and ruby bracelet on her wrist. "Uh-huh. The first one when I kiss you," smiled Mitchell.